Yeah, it was pretty close, I have to say. So, um, good afternoon. Maybe I'm separating you from your lunch, or you already had lunch. Um, my name's Thomas van Hecke. I'm a Belgian national, residing in the Netherlands for Sandvik, working in the mining and rock solutions, parts and services division, responsible for product management and digitalization. And it's a real pleasure to talk to you here today about, what remote monitoring service, one of our latest prime solutions, can do to help you mine in a safer and more efficient way. But before we go there, I'd like to talk a bit about safety. Um, Safety is and will always remain an absolute priority for Sandvik. Number one, doesn't matter where we are, whether it's a mine site, a workshop, warehouse, in our offices, or in an offsite location. We need to take care of our physical safety, but also thinking about cybersecurity, psychological safety, etc. And if I have to do a concrete reflection, I was at a conference last week in Denmark, pretty large hotel, big chain. Not going to mention any names. But at the start of the conference, no information was provided about emergency exits, nor by the hotel, nor by the organizer. And this meant that well, we kind of went on, and as fate had something to do with it, in the afternoon, of course, there was a fire alarm. So nobody really knew what to do. And after 10 seconds, I basically said, "Hey, we have to go. Let's go out, follow the emergency route." And what you could see is that all the other meeting rooms, people were sort of confused as well. They had no idea what they were supposed to do. And at the end of the day, everything was okay. It was just a false alarm. There was a sprinkler that went off in the kitchen for no reason. But if this would have been serious, of course, there could have been some problems. And afterwards, we gave feedback to the organizers. But it just makes you reflect on the importance of a proper safety briefing at the beginning of every event, regardless where you are. With that, let me give you a short intro on Sandvik as a group. Obviously, you're here from mining, but Sandvik is bigger than mining alone. End of 2023, we employed about 41,000 employees, generated 127 billion Swedish crowns in revenue. That's approximately 11 billion euro, 12 billion dollars, or 18 billion Australian dollars. We were present in 170 countries with sales, and we were holding close to 7,000 active patents, and obviously counting. And today we are structured across three different business areas. Sandvik Manufacturing and Machining Solutions, that's where we do tooling systems for advanced metal cutting, also expanding into digitalization with CNC software, etc. And focusing on additive manufacturing and inline metrology. Then Mining and Rock Solutions, obviously why we're here today. Global leader for equipment and tools, technical solutions across different applications. I will not go into details. We'll come there later. And Sandvik Rock Processing Solutions, latest for any crushing and screening needs. So in SMR, Sandvik Mining and Rock Solutions, we cover quite some types of equipment and solutions, starting with mechanical cutting for soft rock, to rotary drills for rigging on surface, rock tools offering the best drilling tools regardless of your application, ground support, bolts, cables, mesh, grout, and much more. Then rock drills are proprietary part and the heart of every drill, offering unrivaled performance. And then we have load and haul in underground, of course, automation, software, various digital offerings, boom drills, underground drills, and finally parts and services. Before we go into the digitalization and the aftermarket, let's talk a bit about what Sandvik as a group thinks about sustainability. In 2022, Sandvik introduced a new strategy, and this was called a shift to growth, and part of that is the sustainability shift. This sustainability shift really talks about a couple of areas where we want to exceed in our own operations, but also impacting the customer's operations. So we've set out to reduce absolute emissions within our own operations. That's heating, power needs, etc. The so-called scope 1 and 2 by about 50% till 2030, and a staggering 90 by 2040. And then we will also work on the scope 3, which is impacting customers' operations, and working on waste circularity. In terms of future of mining, we generally speak about 4 areas: electrification, automatic execution, data analytics, and end-to-end optimization. And obviously here today we'll zoom in on data and analytics. And here we have taken quite a few steps over the last years. So today we can say that all Sandvik equipment leaves the factories connectivity ready. Means that obviously there needs to be infrastructure in place at the customer side, but the machines are ready to go. And we've come there over years and years of investment, both in backline and frontline, enabling this connectivity. So we've grown our installed base of connected units quite substantially, giving us more and more data that we can work with. And in the last, let's say, 5 years, also there we have made substantial investments in actually processing, analyzing that data, and working with customers to provide actual value, setting us quite apart as a leader in that space. What steps can you take to get there? First of all, it starts with getting your equipment connected. That's obviously step 1. You need to have some infrastructure, whether it's through Wi-Fi, whether it's through a private LTE, to get your equipment connected. Once that's done, you can get access to reporting. We have solutions called My Sandvik Insight, My Sandvik Productivity. And if you want a bit more assistance, not just reading reports, but actually getting recommendations on what to do, we have a solution called Remote Monitoring Service, and I'll come to that in a second. And then lastly, contracts where we actually perform the service. There we have integrated reliability engineering, where we also make available the same digital tools to perform in the service operation in the best way possible. So, remote monitoring service, enabling prevention and prediction of breakdowns. Somewhere in the 19th century, there was a philosopher called Herbert Spencer who said, "The great aim of education is not knowledge, but action." And if I draw a parallel with mining equipment, you could say the same thing. We know our equipment pretty well. We're gathering a lot of data, but what is that really worth if we're not doing anything with it? If we're not helping the customers to get the benefit from that? And that's exactly why we've started working on this solution called Remote Monitoring Service, to focus in particular on maintenance and operation-related recommendations, ensuring timely maintenance, reducing unplanned downtime, improving operator competence, and enabling continuous improvement processes as well within the customer's operation, and increasing fleet utilization. It's not a simple process, but I'll try to walk you through it in a summarized way. So, first of all, by having all these machines connected and transferring that data, we can compare with events that have happened in the past. We can also benchmark with globally aggregated data, and we can action both information for maintenance as well as operations. On the other hand, since we are pretty close from a backline perspective with all of the equipment divisions, we can influence and work directly with R&D to impact further development based on what we've seen in the market, and working with some of those algorithms, continuing to develop them. So, that's all very interesting so far, but what is the impact on safety and sustainability? Well, let me take you through a couple of examples. First of all, starting with safety, um, where we can actually look at operator performance and find some safety related violations and areas for improvement. Then we generate reports, actionable insights, and we can compare on a week-to-week basis how particular trucks, loaders, underground drills are improving from a safety violation perspective. But also, bottom line, if we prevent breakdowns, this has an impact on safety as well, because the less breakdowns, the less exposed your people are to getting injured during an event of a breakdown. But a bit more concretely, let's take an example of let's call it bad downhill practice. When you're over speeding at low RPM down the ramp. And this is a case where we saw a machine with over 200 violations, pretty bad. And we actually worked together with the customer to look at, okay, how can we retrain this operator over time to operate the machine in a better way. And after 6 months of doing that, we actually managed to reduce that by 97%. Then on to sustainability. So the first question there, of course, that you think of immediately is fuel burn, fuel efficiency. We do there with remote monitoring service to improve that. So it starts with identifying some of the excessive idle time that can be there in production. Or not in production, basically when the machine is standing, not operating. And then monitoring the operation means that we actually put KPIs in place to start picking up on overconsumption of fuel, improper loading and unloading practices, etc. So we can actually start reducing that extensive idle time and target also operator training there. Another example is a case of pendulum shifting. And I just need to have a quick look at the time. So pendulum shifting, for those not familiar, basically gear selection is not the same as the actual gear. So in this case, you see that the actual gear is jumping and not staying within the second. Machine is failing to get into second upshifting. And what happens there is, you're not running at optimal speed. It's not really safe. It's bad for fuel. So we've retrained that operator and we see that, okay, no, they actually manage to select the proper gear. Machine stays stable in that gear and they can actually run at a slightly higher speed in a more safe way, providing overall a smoother ride as well for that operator. But bottom line, reducing fuel. So same machine, same period, same cycle, close to 30 liters less used. And that's while obviously putting less strain on key components like the transmission in this case, and not reducing the productivity, actually improving it. So pendulum shifting is really just one example of how we can extend parts life by putting less strain on wear components, critical components. Through monitoring equipment, we can prevent issues, and with less breakdown into the life of the machine, also the critical components life will be extended. So that in general, less wear on parts will of course mean that you also have less cost because you need to replace less. Another real life example that we've used a couple of times is a fleet somewhere in Africa, 7 large trucks at a gold mine with an average of 3,000 hours over 9 months prior and 9 months after introducing remote monitoring service. You could see that here substantial improvements in mean time between failure, utilization, and reduction of cost per hour. So remote monitoring service has really helped here to monitor the equipment health and the operator competence development gaps and provided recommendations accordingly. And by doing that, of course, we have used less material. And using less material on that same case means 8,000 kilos of iron saved. Because, of course, large components also need a lot of iron. And you may or not, may not know, but 1 ton of iron production is equaling roughly close to 2 tons of CO2. And then you're not even counting transport, etc. Another example is low engine oil pressure. Okay, so here what happened is we found that the health score of an engine was declining, and there was a little piece of silicon stuck in a sump when they took it off. Might seem minor, but if we didn't take any corrective action there based on the recommendation, that engine would have failed and probably cost 24 hours of downtime at least. Now, don't get bogged down on these numbers. This is an example based on one customer, but the bottom line, it means that the savings are substantial. And the last one I want to share is what it means for our supply chain. Obviously, Sandvik's aftermarket, it's a big logistics operation, and by predicting and by actually preventing issues, we can also plan better for mechanical interventions. This means that it leads to less urgency in transportation. Also, in general, extending life means less transport, and all that leads to substantial reduction in emissions in our supply chain. A quick future outlook of what's next with remote monitoring service and beyond. So today we are represented, I would say, all over the world, and we are mostly we have been mostly focusing on underground equipment, but moving into the surface space as well with rotary and boom drills. And we want to further build on that in the coming year and years on rotary DRIs and boom drills I-series. And we want to continue enhancing our network that we have globally in the front line as well as in the backline competence. And then the next step we want to take is on the equipment itself, trying to feed information directly to the operator instead of having to go via the mine site or the supervisor. And including a bit more on emissions monitoring as well. We can do a lot already based on the utilization, the engine hours, etc., but we want to work with actual signal output. And Sandvik's vision maybe in general, and I will keep that quite short, on the industry, we look at 3 things. How can we evolve towards a net zero mine where in the future everything needs to be fossil fuel free, so electrified equipment, etc., and fully automating everything. Circular mine of the future, being resource efficient and extraction processes optimized, and then a regenerative mine where basically you look at circularity and reducing waste to a complete minimum. And there it's really important to deploy all of the digital solutions like remote monitoring service that are at hand. So with that, I hope I've given you a bit of an overview of what remote monitoring service can do, not just from a sustainability and safety perspective, but in general for your operation. And I'd like to maybe give you a bit of a challenge as well. So a professor I had probably 20 years ago, he said in a recent keynote that every insight you gain or every new piece of information you acquire, you should try to do something with it within the next 48 hours. Studies have shown that newly acquired information, if you don't action it in 48 hours, well, not everything, but most of it will fade away. You might not action it anymore. So since we're here 3 days, I'd say take the opportunity, come visit us at the Sandvik stand, have a chat with one of my colleagues or myself about what remote monitoring service could do for you. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention today.